All right, first question, is it there? Yes. Finally, we have a mostly square rectangle parachute. You can see at the top, the back or tail of the canopy has some what look like ripples on the edge, and that's just where the brake lines pull down a little bit on the tail. But yes, this is a mostly square rectangle parachute. Now that we've asked, is it there? Is it square? We can go on and check to see, is it steerable by doing a controllability check. This will be 2 flares, left, right, full flare. Now let's talk about square or mostly square. If a parachute is square or mostly square, we can go on to the next question to see if it's steerable. But let's see what mostly square means. On the left, we have pretty much a rough square rectangle shape, so that is mostly square. On the right, we have about 75% of the right side of the canopy is fully inflated and holding a rectangle shape. On the left side, it looks like there's a section that may be a little crimped off by one of the lines. So in this case, both of these, we have 75%, maybe more of the parachute fully inflated above our heads. Next, we'll check, is it steerable? It may or may not be. We just have to check. 2 flares, left turn, right turn, flare. If you can do the controllability check without any issues, you're probably safe to land that canopy. If a controllability check makes things worse, or you can't control the canopy in a turn or in a flare, then you'll need to cut away with the emergency procedures. Here is a good example of mostly square versus not square at all. So the canopy on the left, it's mostly square, so we can go ahead and do the controllability check. The canopy on the right is not square at all, so we're going to go ahead and cut away with the emergency procedures. So, is it there? Yes, the canopy is there. We do see the main parachute. So we can go on to the second question. Is it square? Absolutely not. If it's not square, we don't need to go on to the third question. We don't need to see if it's steerable or not because it's not square. We have no, it's not square. We're going to go ahead and cut away with the emergency procedures. Is it there? Yes, the main canopy is there. We can see it. Is it square or mostly square? Yes, it's probably about 75% inflated, so I would say it's mostly square. Is it steerable? Well, to see if it's steerable, we're going to do 2 flares. And we're going to start with the 2 flares. And after we flare twice, we're going to check it again and see if it improved at all. If the flares don't help the situation and make it fully inflate, and we can't steer it, then we're going to go ahead and cut away with the emergency procedures. It is possible that flaring twice will fix this situation, and then you can continue with the controllability check with the left turn, right turn, and full flare. If you can't steer and flare the parachute, you'll need to cut away with the emergency procedures. In this photo, the canopy has a tear on the left side. That sounds pretty bad, but we still follow the exact same decision questions. Is it there? Yes, the canopy is there. Is it square? Yes, it's a pretty square canopy. And 3, is it steerable? Well, in order to see if it's steerable, we're going to do a flare, a second flare, left, right, full flare. Just because a canopy has a tear in it doesn't mean you have to cut it away. You have to do all 3 questions and check steerability to see if you can safely turn and flare this canopy. If this was my canopy and this happened to me, I would do the controllability check, but I wouldn't do too many hard turns. I'd take it pretty calm and pretty easy to the landing area. Okay, next parachute. Is it there? Yes, it's there. Is it square or mostly square? Yep, I would say mostly square. It's mostly inflated. Is it steerable? Again, we're going to do 2 flares to see if we can improve the situation. If it stays like this, you're probably not going to be able to flare and steer the parachute in for a landing. The slider is the square piece of material that's holding all the lines together in the center. That square slider has to come down at least halfway down the lines in order for you to be able to steer and flare the canopy. If that slider stays stuck at the top, you're not going to be able to flare and do turns in a controlled manner for a safe landing. So after you flare twice, if the slider doesn't come down at all or is stuck at the top, you're going to have to use your emergency procedures. Okay, first question, is it there? Yes, it's there. Is it square or mostly square? Yeah, I would say it's mostly square, mostly inflated. Is it steerable? Again, we're going to flare twice. Flaring twice should fix the situation and allow the canopy to fully inflate. In this image, the outside or end cells are not fully inflated yet. Flaring twice should fix the situation and make the canopy steerable. Remember, you have to be able to steer the canopy and flare the canopy for a safe landing. If you can't steer it or flare it safely, you'll need to use your emergency procedures to cut away. This scenario is just slightly different, but we're still going to go through the same three questions. First, is it there? Yes, it's there. 2, is it square or mostly square? Yeah, we can see that the canopy is mostly inflated. Now, here's the catch. We can't check to see if it's steerable when the lines are twisted like this. The brake lines get caught in those line twists and become ineffective when you try to pull on the brakes. So before we check steerability, we have to undo all of the line twist. In order to do that, you're going to grab your risers, pull the risers apart, and pretend like you're kicking on a bicycle. That's going to help unspin those line twists. If the line twists get worse, you're going to have to try and kick backwards on the bicycle to spin in the other direction. Once the line twists are clear, then you can continue with the controllability check of 2 flares, left, right, flare. And remember, even with line twist, your decision altitude is 2,500 feet. If you still have line twist at 2,500 feet, then you're going to have to cut away with the emergency procedures. First question, is it there? Yes, it's there. Is it square or mostly square? Yeah, it's mostly square and mostly inflated. Is it steerable? Well, we're going to have to do 2 flares, left, right, and flare. In this situation, we have some broken lines on the canopy. Just because you have a broken line, or even multiple broken lines, doesn't mean you can't land the parachute safely. We have to do a controllability check to see if you can turn and flare the canopy. If you can turn and flare the canopy in a controlled, safe manner, you can still land the parachute. If you can't do it in a controlled, safe manner, and the parachute gets worse or uncontrollable in a turn or a flare, then you have to cut away with the emergency procedures. Is it there? Yes, it's there. Is it square? Yes, it's square. Is it steerable? Well, we're going to check 2 flares, left, right, flare. In this situation, the pilot chute has come over the nose of the canopy and is catching air, pulling the bridle to pinch the front nose of the canopy. In this situation, you should be able to land the parachute safely after the controllability check, but you don't want to do any hard turns. All turns need to be soft and slow turns, but you should be able to land this parachute safely.